All right, Misha, I believe we're live here. So good to be able to talk with you today. And
Great to talk.
we'll give people just a moment to kind of come onto the stream. While we're getting started here, uh, how are things going with you today?
Things are great. I've dropped off my son with his grandmother and got some nice deep work done this morning, which is always nice. Yeah,
Awesome. And you're in the Bay Area, is that right?
I'm in the Bay Area. Yes, in Marin County. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Cool. Well, maybe we'll just go ahead and jump into it. Real quick, I mean, you and I have worked together both when you were at Fleecis and at Webflow. You've got a great background in terms of approaching brand from this story-driven type of lens, and love to just hear more about what you've been working on and how you see like your focus within what's happening today in work.
Yeah. So for the last 7 months or so, I've been doing more fractional marketing consulting. So sometimes working with venture capital firms, sometimes working with companies themselves. And it's everything on marketing strategy, branding strategy overall, as well as, content strategy and execution as well, too. I think a lot of people, especially in this day with AI, that it does help increase the amount of output, but sort of like piecing that together to like, hey, is this the right story that my audience should care about? Is this even, does this help me get in front of the right audience? I've been helping people think through a lot of those things. And sometimes it involves working with them on the stories that they're telling. Sometimes it's involved just more about, the narratives that they want out there, helping them figure out what those narratives are. And yeah, it kind of the medium that it can come out with. It could be writing, it could be video. Lately, I've been doing a lot of video with the awesome team at Bain Capital Ventures. So we've been creating this series called Outlier Briefings, and those are conversations with the partners at Bain and uh, different founders in their portfolio. And BCV team is run by the awesome Allison Braley, who's their CMO, and it's been a blast doing that. And it's just those outlier briefings really start with like having founders talk about a moment of vulnerability, which I think is
Mhm.
really special because you get, especially founding fundraising videos, you get a lot of founders just being like, we're killing it. It's awesome. Things are going great. Nothing's ever bad. And you have a founder and these videos starting with like, hey, here's a moment when it was really hard. And
Yeah.
here's how we got through it. And then it kind
Yeah.
of goes into that. So we're trying to help find those more humane stories there.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important because it's easy to see the big IPO or the raise or, whatever those big press release moments. And the thing that's difficult in starting anything is like, well, what's the valley of sadness that you're in that you're trying to sort of work through and those trying times and all, but that those inflection points is really where I think, great companies are made.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the questions that, you and I had been going back and forth on ahead of this is like, as brands are kind of accelerating into this new world and human connection is prized, but, synthetic creation is the thing that is often talked about the most. And that kind of like, um, that tension there from everyone feeling like they should be doing more, they can do more, and I love this stat that you pulled up, which is like today AI as a broad brand or topic is actually less popular than ice. And it's like, that was from the NBC poll, uh, where, I think it was 26% of Americans view AI positively, whereas like 46% view it, net negatively.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like what are some of like the broad things that you're seeing there, between this like, balance of people wanting to connect as humans, but accelerating sometimes the slop cannon or the pace in which they think they need to operate or those types of things.
Yeah, there's a few interesting things happening right now because of generative AI, and NBC poll. So I should start. It's like, it's only 1,000 respondents. So obviously, and
It's
it
not.
came before the war in Iran, et cetera, and stuff. And there's an interesting other poll I found. So Jim Prosser, who's an amazing comms leader, who's does fractional work now too, who also lives in Marin. He has a great newsletter called Personal Familiar. That and there was a stat a couple weeks ago from the Data for Progress survey that was also around the same time frame, around from people who never use AI technology view it unfavorably by a 42-point margin, whereas people who do use it at least once a day view it favorably by 57 points, and that's a 99-point swing, like in between that delta. So there's a, and to me it means there's really basically three things happening here with AI. It's like, one, there's been this like broader narrative with AI of like, it's gonna end the world. It could end the world. It could take your job. It's massively changing the economy. It's a blight on the environment. And there's, there's kernels of truth in all of that, but there's nuance. In the media world we are in, there's always like, it's going to gravitate to the extremes. But because of that, because the media has kind of gone that way, people tend to fall on like one side or other, when the truth is it's a lot more nuanced, like any technology. And then also there's a lot of people here very excited about AI. I use AI every day. I'm sure you use it all the time. But in the rest of the country, I don't know if that's happening like broadly in the rest of the country. Like I was on the East Coast a couple weeks ago in New York and like catching up with some people. And it's like, yeah, they use AI like here and there. I was talking to like my cousin and she was like, oh yeah, she's a teacher. She doesn't really use it a ton. She sees it's helpful for maybe like summarizing some patterns and stuff and some students and stuff. But it's like, so I think there's pockets where people of the country and in the world where people are using it like very heavily, and then people aren't really using it and they're maybe not aware fully of what it can do. And that's becoming just like a gap in what's possible. And I think and what this other survey from the Data for Progress really tells me, it's that when people understand what it's capable of, when they get their hands on it, then they can get really excited about it. And they see, hey, this is a tool, another tool that I can use. And it's similar to, I remember when I was a kid, teachers decrying like Wikipedia is a terrible source. You cannot trust Wikipedia as a source. I'm sure you remember
it's on the internet.
Time. Yeah, exactly. If it's on the internet, you can't trust it. And people adjusted, and you can, there's things on the internet that aren't true, but people also like learn kind of like internet literacy. We're going to have this whole, everybody at once kind of learn AI literacy, and that's going to be a lot harder. But then as a result, and I bring those up because that context is really important. And I think sometimes you can have, especially VCs who like don't understand that context. They're just like, hey, we're so excited about this business. It's going to take your sales team from 10 people to 2, and here's why. And it's like, yeah, that narrative like might work with a CRO, and it might work with a founder or a board of directors, and that's who you're selling to. But like the public backlash of that can be more intense than you think about, or it's not. They're not thinking out kind of like those second, third order effects of putting that story out there. And I also just think like there's a balance too. There was also this like we were hitting the real gas on AI for the last 2-3 years, and people are kind of starting to pull back from that narrative a little bit, focus on like, hey, where's the value really at? There was that McKinsey study from of like, people aren't actually using it that much at work. And I think we're kind of in the middle of this like reckoning right now. And at the same time too, the models are accelerating in certain places like coding and design and video and imaging and stuff like that. So you kind of have to balance that. And I also think like there's just the last thing is too is, the slop cannon term is so fun. And I feel that's really like caught on the last couple months is, you go on LinkedIn, so many things are obviously written with AI. And I don't know that people always care. If a founder has like used something and be like, hey, I'm announcing my thing, and it's very obviously written with AI, or a VC is announcing support of that and that has AI written, it's like, do people really care? And I don't know, I mean, yeah, you could take the work to personalize it and make it better, but also if you're feeding AI like the right inputs, you're feeding it like, hey, do this thing, focus on these points. And whenever I'm working with AI, it's I'm always giving it something to go off. I'm never saying like, hey, give me a point on this. You always want to, I'm trying to give it the opinion and trying to ask it to push back in certain places. I think if you know how to do that and harness with that, people will just like, they'll react to it as a way, or their AIs will, or
Or
their
yeah,
agents will.
exactly. Or their AIs will give a summary of what your
Yeah,
AI had given them.
exactly. So it's a really interesting moment we are in like the broader public conversation. It's like it's happening with more increasing, and then you have also Google reacting to a lot of AI slop there and changing their
Yep.
algorithms more frequently, and then obviously the models themselves are changing how they surface content and stuff too. So it's just a really interesting time, and what I think what I always tell people when I'm working with is like let's figure out who our audience is and tell the most interesting story to them in a way that uniquely fits what we want to communicate.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. You said you've been focusing on video.
Mhm.
Um, how are you seeing, and like obviously video, it's maybe a little bit harder to fake with AI, or maybe it feels more human. When you're talking with the groups like at Bain or wherever, like how are they receiving that? And like what's their perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think video just comes off more authentically, and I think a big reason for focusing on video is just all these platforms, uh, LinkedIn, Twitter, everything, are just more. They're more tuned. The algorithms are more tuned into to showing you video.
Yep.
Really, if you have it, they just like they want to see it. I mean, X is having this moment with articles on it as well too. So, posting an article on X right now does really well. Can do really well. Um, excuse me. And I think video is just it's one of those the way I describe video to people, it's the most emotional of the mediums. You get uh, input to your eyes, you get input to your ears, and you don't get two inputs like that from many other
Hmm.
mediums.
Yep.
And so because of that, and you can also like display text as well too, so you can get like you can really get a lot of interesting neural pathways like firing in people's brains, and it's just such a really captivating way to capture people's attention. And I think we've had YouTube now going on for 20 plus years as a form that it's completely superseded TV in America and worldwide, and so people understand video that is made native to the internet as a format and how to play with that and how liberating that can be. You're not roped into these traditional things of like, oh, this needs to be formatted for broadcast or this needs to
Yeah.
be a certain way, or oh, it's just like, so there's a lot of freedom in video, and you can honestly in some way take some more chances there than you can with text. And people I think they're more willing to go with something if it's video than it is text.
What would be an example? I'm curious.
Uh, well, even like in these Bane videos that we're doing, we're playing with some of the format in terms of just like where we're interviewing people and how we're doing that. Um, I think you even see it. You can even see like it's pretty like Y Combinator just came out last week, I think, with their call for startups, which used to be all text. Now it's
Hmm.
video largely too. It's like you'll see the
Hmm.
partner talking about why they care about this area and stuff. And it's just so much more captivating to do it that way versus just have it text. You get to, as a founder, you get to hear from this partner their words directly, and it gives you a better sense of, hey, this is what it's going to be like to probably work with that person. I think also, obviously, you see a lot of podcasts becoming more video
Yeah.
centric. I think Stripe is doing it incredibly well with their Cheeky Pint series that feels very, um, it feels very, uh, inspired by the Seth Meyers day drinking
Hmm.
kind of thing and stuff. So it's people are taking these things that are out there in the culture and adapting it to make and fit their audience. So it's it's uh I believe John Collison, like with a founder or two, like having a beer in a set
Yeah.
and talking about technology, and it just feels so much more approachable. And then you even have companies like Clay and Gumloop that are doing things that just feel more YouTube native. They're just like, it feels very like creator driven. And by that means it just feels like there's a YouTuber behind it, someone with a point of view, someone with a clear, like, I want to tell this kind of story with this narrative. And they're using it for everything from a product video to a recruiting video, to a customer video. And then you have companies like Replit who are going like even further. Like they just started doing this reality show where it's like it's very kind of like Shark Tank style, but it's entrepreneurs racing to get to a specific revenue target. And it's just brilliant to me, where it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
you'll get people using Replit in there, but it's delivered in a more entertaining fashion. And there was nothing stopping companies from doing this before, and there have been
Yeah.
companies doing it for years. And I've been doing stuff. I did some stuff like this at Webflow years ago when I was there, as well as other companies. But I think the difference is now you just see you've had kind of like a cycle of companies that people were just starting to itching to do it, and now you just see it's more common. You also have younger people in marketing roles who've grown up with different
Mhm.
influences, and I think that's really helping.
Yeah. And I think sort of the multimodality that you were mentioning, if I can say that correctly, it's a lot. It's
It's
a
a mouthful.
mouthful. It's a lot. It's a lot in there. Um, is definitely a big part of that. And then, you know, having our attention spans, I think, starting to get shorter. Whereas,
Hmm.
like, there can be like sort of high calorie, low amount, sort of like low duration that
Hmm.
people are constantly sort of flipping through. And so I think you combine all of those things together with also maybe the distrust of just the pure written word of like, it's hard to maybe have some of the accent or intonation or just understanding some of that personality. And so I can definitely see that, and even today, I mean, like I wanted to be able to talk with you because it's like we've worked together, but you have a really unique perspective. And I think you've seen a lot of different types of companies. And then, for me, I have been traveling to San Francisco more than I ever have. I think I've been there 4 times in the last 2 months.
Hmm.
But it's because there's so much stuff that's going on. I think the difference, or being able to tie this back to what we were just talking about here, is a lot of the conversations have been around like all of the change that's happening, and change is difficult for people. But it's also, there's a lot of excitement there. I'm curious as we get into some of the fundamentals, like you've seen a lot of different types of companies, like you help to, you know, get we're on the team, I think, with Pivotal as they went
Hmm.
public, and they're sort of an interesting combination of an agency and a product. And early,
Hmm. Hmm.
I think was one of the other ones you were early at, not just
Oh,
Webflow, but
I was at Twitter like pretty early, like
okay.
back in the day. Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Um, go for it.
Yeah. No, no, no. I mean, I think it's funny you talk about this uh like the evolution of yeah of how things are changing, and they for sure are. But there's always been, like, every medium has had the, like, just to get a second back to what you're talking about, um the multimodality conversation. Like every medium has had these kind of like very mechanical drop off points of interest. For video, it's those first like 3-5 seconds. For
Yep.
website, it's like the things above the fold and stuff too. So it's not to say like you have to like over optimize for the tactics to keep people on the page. You want to be aware of them too, but you want to have those in mind as you're crafting your story or that first impression and stuff too. And also similar to, like, I just see like a lot of even founders now, investors, everybody. It's like when you share something, you want to share a screenshot of something that can
Yep.
cover everything and stuff
Yep.
too. So um, that's been a big thing, I think, of people just being more aware of those tactics, how that's changed. But the other thing too, it's like when I started doing this, like, not to sound, and God, I've been doing this now for like almost 20 years. Um, uh, it was traditional for like brand and storytelling to come from a brand, come from a
Yep.
company. There was a whole weird Twitter moment with Wendy's and everything, and
Oh
the
yeah. Yeah.
unhinged kind of account, and that still is there around, and there's a funness to it. But like people have kind of reacted to that, and you now see a lot more emphasis on just like the individual, like essentially the
Mhm.
founder as a creator, basically,
Yep. Yep.
or the investor even as a creator. And that way too, it's like one of my, I do work with like a fair number of venture capital firms, and one of the metaphors that I use um, for venture, and really it applies to companies as well too, technology. It's like it's the NBA basically, where it's like
Right.
people care about the stars mostly. They follow the team. You do have people who care about the team,
Yep.
but not every team is created the same. You have your Arsenal. I know they're a football team, but you have your Lakers and Celtics and stuff. People who care more about those, but then you have people who like care about your Steph, LeBrons um, of the world, and that's just why I think a lot of the content that's coming out has to get delivered from a person, and that also dovetails into how things are changing with AI. It's like Google wants to see that there is a human author behind things.
Yeah.
They want to see something as they're not just from like, team staff or account, or there's no author listed. So there is a mechanical thing, but it's not just like, even if you just put a person in there, or, don't put like a fake person on there. It's like, you want to
Yeah.
have someone who can say like, hey, I'm going to stand behind this, even if this thing was ghostwritten for me, but also to have it like communicated at least somewhat humanly. And obviously there are things you can do at the top for an LLM, like little, headings in a certain way, summaries at the top and stuff like that. There are those things, and they matter. And they do matter a lot right now, but things will change and things will adapt. And you also don't want all your content to hit that exact same format. You eventually
Yeah.
want to have things that are, I think there is this big push now back for this more bespoke, almost magazine like stuff, both in the, um, uh, in every format really, and you'll
Yeah.
see it across like Sequoia doing it with their podcasts with that I know you guys did work with them on their site, the Crucible
Yeah.
Moments, which is
Yeah.
I believe audio only. It's just such rich audio. You'll
Yeah.
hear Roloff like talk about Jack Dorsey or something, or like something like that, and it's just like, oh, like it feels like I'm sitting in on a partner meeting at Sequoia, and that's so rare to get that kind of rich storytelling from a partner, and it's great. And you get the founder talking about stuff, and it's really just like really rich stuff. And Sequoia also, I think, like paves the way with their just really deep um profiles of founders. Obviously there's the famous like FTX one that got taken down, that was written by a New Yorker person, but they just started that trend of like, hey, we're going to get
Yeah.
really good storytellers to write about these companies. And it helps. Maybe it's not the biggest awareness uh, bucket for things, but it does help. Hey, if you're interested in working at this company, or a customer of this, and you're going to meet this founder at something, maybe you'll read this and it'll help color your impression. And yeah, it's happening in video too. I mean, I could give. It's just I think that's what's really exciting. I even saw like my friend Nate runs content at First Round Capital, and he just did a really great profile of Lenny Rashitsky, who writes
Mm.
Lenny's newsletter. And it's just like this really great Lenny at his home, like someone who doesn't open up normally, talk about
Yeah.
learning his business. And it also is talking about his evolution with AI. And that is why is First Round doing this? They're not investors in Lenny and stuff. Well, first off, like Lenny himself is an investor, and like
Yeah.
they probably partner on some investor stuff. And it's just a rich thing that a lot of the people, founders and other people, will kind of care about. And so just understanding that this more media centric approach um, is something that their audience will care about. But also First Round has taken this much broader, deliberately taken a much more broader view of their audience. And they were first to it years ago when Camille was doing it, and now they're doing it great with Nate.
Mm.
So having that kind of audience focus, I think, gives you a sense of like, oh, this is what we need to, yeah, if we're going to do some things with AI, we can do some things here with AI, but we're going to double down and make this we're going to give this a lot of attention and make it very, very bespoke and feel very curated and very personally delivered to people.
And I'd love to be able to dig into some of like the fundamentals of great storytelling, but kind of backing out first. And, I think it's an interesting time to look at the technology that's coming out, but also looking at, all right, well, what are the groups that are taking these bets on all these transformational companies and really kind of like, you know, like going for it. And as it relates to, marketing within VCs, like we've done a good bit of that work. I think, we've worked with, you know, General Catalyst and Excel and Sequoia, and like there's a lot of groups that have been wonderful, iconic, uh, been able to work with. And one of the questions that often gets asked is, why should a VC even market? And I'm curious on, because they're not trying to sell more widgets, and there's no shortage of people that want to approach them. Uh, why market?
Yeah. VC is a funny thing. I mean, I'm sure you've heard the quote from Mark Andreessen. He said it like a month or so ago, where it's like, we're a media company that happens to monetize through venture. And venture is such a fascinating like economic model because it's
Yep.
so weird. It's just so
Yeah.
weird. Like there's no model like quite like it. Um, and because of that, VCs are largely in the attention game. And even if that attention is it doesn't have to be like loud upfront in your feed attention. It's just more like, hey, are you a firm that people think about with when founders are looking for fundraising? Are you also in with the right founders? The people who are, whatever, peeling off of OpenAI or Anthropic
Yeah.
and starting their own companies. You want to be top of mind for there. Um, and so there is like this attention and engagement section that VCs like really care about. Um, and that is something that, you can get behind the scenes. You have your iconic firms, your benchmarks of you who never do any marketing and don't need to. And then you have your thrives of the world who don't do marketing as it appears, but Kelly and the folks who are there, they do a great job on the comm side of making sure there's like there's one of these pieces like every couple months around something that they're doing, and they're very involved um uh from that perspective. So then when you're if you don't have uh a Josh Kushner or someone like that on your side, so it's like, okay, how do we get this level of attention? You kind of have to manufacture it. And so
Yeah.
you can look at people like Sarah Guo, who has done an incredible job with, starting the podcast that she did with Alad, getting that kind of attention. And she's just kind of helped raise her profile a lot. She's already doing like incredible deals in AI and stuff. And I think that just helped rocket her up the attention charts. And you don't have to like, not every VC is going to have a huge podcast, obviously, but you can kind of
Yeah.
like micro focus on like, hey, we care very much about engineers coming out of University of Waterloo or something like
Sure.
that and stuff too. And you can do something that appeals very much to hardware founders or even people who are applying AI to healthcare or security or defense. There are inroads there, and a lot of VCs will spend time crafting events and stuff for them. So it really is this whole go-to-market function that sometimes partners have individually around themselves and the sector that they care the most about. And then you have to be able to move fast. You have to be able to say like, hey, it's not just about what people care about now, what people are using now. Like, what do we think? How do we think the world's going to be different in even like 18 months, two
Yep.
years, 5 years from now?
Yeah.
So that's an effort in predictions. And I'm a believer that it's actually really helpful to put predictions out there, because if you get them wrong, you get to learn something, you get to share those insights, and if you get them right, you have receipts for them, which is pretty fun. So that's the other thing too, is VC is very much like a prediction business, and I'm not talking like Polymarket here and stuff too. You are predicting, hey, this is how we think the world is going to change. This is how we think the economy is going to change and fold around that. So you kind of need to put that out there in some way. And sometimes you can put it out in one-to-one conversations like this with founders. Sometimes you do it in a group of people, and sometimes you put it on a website, in a blog, in a video, in a podcast. You just kind of have to figure out like the best format for that. And I think some partners do really pretty well with it, especially those investors. Some investors who are former executives or former founders themselves, they have that kind of magnetic presentation quality. And that can work really well for recruiting future founders for them.
And so it's kind of like attention, obviously just making sure that you're on people's radar, but then almost like that influence as well, where you can help to shape what that future is going to be.
Yes. And then you also want to do that for the LP side as well too, which I haven't talked as much about. But obviously, if you're in VC, like a limited partner are the LPs, who are the people who, it's family offices, it's institutions, wealthy individuals who sometimes sovereign wealth funds that give money to the VCs to invest. So, I think VCs mostly probably need to do their marketing for founders, but you obviously need to do stuff for your LPs as well. Sometimes that's more, behind the scenes, like, hey, an email newsletter or something like that. But you also do want to put some things out there so people understand, like, hey, this is our hit rate. We've had, and some companies or some firms do it a lot. It's a lot more automatic. You have your your machines, if you will, your like your Y Combinators and your Andreessens that just like naturally will put out their own lists and stuff. And Y Combinator
Yep.
especially will be like, hey, we have 50 companies coming this year. This is how
Yep.
many raised the next seed round. This is how many became, and they have that all there, and it's all pretty searchable on their site. So if you're not at that level, you need to figure out, hey, what are the things that we can do to maybe get some attention and put something out there? Because these LPs, they also care about the world, and they care about
Yeah.
uh, your thesis and like what you believe about the future and why, and they want to know that before they're giving you money. Yeah, they do some diversifying, obviously, with their own money, but they want to know, okay, if I'm cutting a $10-20 million check to this fund, how are they different versus me just giving all my money to General Catalyst, Excel, et cetera?
Yep. And I'm curious, like, you've sort of set the bar, like this is the thing that everyone should be doing. And, you know, one of the challenges that I see is with across the board in venture, creating a content is always a challenge. And then getting partners involved can be a challenge. How do you see, like, what are the things or themes or like what's the why that you bring to these different groups on like why the founder or why the partner should be involved, how to get them involved? Because even just kind of getting them, getting partners to even be aware of like a marketing project is like that's like a whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's you don't need necessarily every partner, and I say marketing project won't succeed at a venture if you have every single partner
Oh
involved in
God,
it,
no.
and, like by far. It's more, when you do stuff for the firm, it's one thing, but when you get partners doing it for themselves, for some people, it's like that comes off, they're like, oh, I don't want to promote myself, I don't want to sell
Yep.
myself. And look, I get that. I felt that way for a long time about even my own work. I even when I did consulting before, and you kind of just need to, I don't know, you just need to get over it. Like really,
Yeah.
as a partner, like you need to be selling. You're selling yourself when you're talking to a founder in a competitive deal. You're selling yourself and your firm, and they need to understand, hey, why? How if I pick this person, how are they going to have my back? How am I going to understand it? So like, and you want to have this like you don't, and it's not to say that partners should only be sharing things about, oh, here's exactly what I did with a founder, or here's
Yep.
what to expect of me. That comes off to, chest thumping and self promoting and stuff. But you want to have a balance of like, to give people a sense of, hey, here's what it's like to work with you. And also, here are the things that you believe and stuff. And also show that, hey, you have the potential to, your mind can expand and you can learn new things and be exciting. Cause like being an investor is very different than being an executive at a company or an
Yeah.
employee at a company. You get to say, like, you get to challenge people, and you should be challenging your founders in the right way. And they need to know that, hey, this is someone who is smart and is thinking about the world in a very interesting way and can help me like see ahead of curves and see ahead
Yeah.
of some blind spots that I might have. So founders are looking for people who can help fill in those blind spots, and they're looking for people who just can like get excited, who can like appear personable and stuff too. Like having an investor on your and having a firm on your cap table is a very long relationship,
Yep.
decades longer and stuff too. So these are people that you want to be able to have and be able to turn to as the business evolves and help you figure out the next phase of the business. And a smart investor will know, like, hey, this company is going to like all new heights. You want to
Yep.
bring in this
Yep.
kind of investor now to help you with this phase, whether it's you're going public or you're scaling your revenue really fast or partnerships, whatever it is. So I think it really does. It comes back to that for the individual and just for um, yeah, I think for getting partners to care about marketing projects, I wouldn't call them marketing projects. I would sell them more as like programs or
Mhm.
products themselves. And it is hard to
Mhm.
get VCs to think about more in a more product mindset. But for the ones who've been builders before, it's definitely
Mhm.
easier. And to just think too, I think everyone in VC gets a little bit like restless with like, oh, I haven't like built something, I haven't shipped something. And even when you're in software, you're not actually building something. It's all bits and stuff. You're not doing
Yep.
stuff. So it's like I think people do relish the chance to roll up their sleeves and do
Mhm.
something, whether it is an event, a podcast, a tool, an AI. We're going to put together a bunch of AI tools out there, and you can even see it. Like Gary Tan just put out, I think he calls it GStack, his version of that he's built on top of OpenClaw for like building your own
Mhm.
company. He's so clearly excited and enthused about this. And if I'm a young founder building something with OpenClaw, like I want to be, I want to be Y Combinator. And, there's now more accelerators to choose from before, but now it's like they are clearly making a big statement of this. And he's spending his nights and weekends doing this. It's such a clear thing of like, oh, this guy is someone I want. And this is the room I want to be in that will help me nurture and bring this idea to fruition.
Well, I think, yeah, repositioning it from marketing to some type of program, you're spot on there. And I know that even for us, we try to never call what we're doing a brand assignment, even
Hmm.
though it's a brand assignment. It's like,
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm.
it's like trying to be able to get to clarity or being able to have like, a unified point of view. Like those are the types of ways
I
that
mean,
we'll,
it's strategy. It's
yeah,
strategy.
it's
It's always
strategy. Yeah.
strategy. Like even brand is strategy. Like it's
Yep.
just that's what it is. And content here too. It's like you asked, and we can get into it about like content foundation stuff. Like it really content is complete or story founded. It's content is different than story. Like content
Yeah.
has an agenda. It has a
Yep.
distinct audience in mind. There are elements of story that you can weave in it, for sure, but that is like a strategic
Mm,
element, and that's why I think a lot of times it is positioned internally. Yeah, and I think if you call things product programs versus just like, hey, we're doing this marketing piece, it's like no, you're doing this and here's why. And there's some things in that too, just to get into it, like whenever I'm producing a piece of content, it could be uh, a post for somebody. It could be a article, a video. I always have in mind, and I list it out. It's like, what's my goal with this piece? Who's the
mhm,
audience? Specific, sometimes even specific. It could be even a specific person.
mm,
Um, or even like a type of person, like a CRO at Series B
yep,
companies, whatever. And for VC, sometimes you write something for one person specifically, and that can work as well. And then channel and creative. Thinking of like, hey, where does this need to live, and what creative
mhm,
does it need to like help sustain it,
mm,
which can then help influence the format as well too. And that comes from it's I already did like goal and audience and stuff too, and then I worked with Emily Kramer at Carta, and she obviously writes the MKT1 newsletter, which
mm,
is the best marketing newsletter out there right now. If you don't
absolutely.
subscribe right now. And she has this GAX program, and also too, like, just to get I don't know. We can delve into it, but I think what she does with her newsletter is like she does this great job of like both, yes, creating content for it, but also giving people resources, whether it's a
Yep.
calculator, a file format,
Mhm,
a template of something, an MCP file, a Claude skill, which she's been doing recently. Those are awesome, and there's no reason companies and firms can't do those too. I mean, even yes, Gary Tan releasing GStack is him personally, but that's ostensibly a marketing program for Y Combinator. Like
yep.
it all helps. It all adds that. And it's a very exciting time because of that, because everybody can build now. So now marketing doesn't have to wait as
Mhm,
much on,
yep.
maybe they definitely need the IT permission to before launching things to production, but you can still build your prototype. You can design your thing, and you don't have to wait on those reviews or cycles. You can just get your hands dirty and do that. And that's what's super exciting about right now.
And I think that, one of the other things, again, I think that there's a lot that's happening in venture where people are starting to open up a bit more, be more upfront. And it's not just about the logo on the door. It's sort of like, as you said, an NBA kind of metaphor here, where it's, you're following LeBron or whoever. I'm not a super sports ball person, so I couldn't tell you who's in the NBA today. um, but that you want to be able to follow along and look for, you know, who you'd want to be able to partner with as a human,
Hmm.
and who you really want to be able to work with, as opposed to just sort of like a faceless organization that can feel scary. Like I think as a founder, like the
Hmm.
idea of doing a raise is kind of terrifying because you're letting go of control ultimately. Like you're hopefully getting an advisor, you're hopefully, having someone that's going to help to accelerate to the next phase. But um, we're, all relationships are challenging, and you want to make sure that you've got the right relationship in place. And I think as well on the LP side, where it's like who to be able to trust, who to be able to understand, like where to make those investments, and having a sense of like who's on the other side of it. It's critical.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think the thing that's also kind of unique about it was true of other tech revolutions. I just see it's more pronounced in this wave than others.
yeah,
It's like everyone with AI, there is a little bit of fear involved with like,
yeah,
and the fear comes from just like, I don't know what's happening. And I like, I think I'm pretty well versed in stuff. I would still say I'm aware on a given day of like 25% of what's going out there. And it's just of
oh,
like, okay, I've chosen to focus more on my open claw today
yeah,
versus this, versus that, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, and that's good. And that's good. And there's still just so much you're missing. So if you can just be a partner, and this comes more for like VCs to LPs and definitely like founders to VCs, um, a partner of like, hey, here's what's going on in the world right now, and help people understand this little section and this little slice of it.
mm,
People are so grateful for that. And even like
yeah,
companies to their customers, hey, here's what's happening in
yeah,
sales, just so you know, and here's how AI is affecting this, and blah, blah, blah. Because like people just like they're trying to learn about this, and they're also trying to do their jobs at the same time, and it's so hard to keep up with everything. So if you can just be this conduit to helping people understand how technology is affecting their
mm,
current moment, their current industry, and how it might change how they approach their audience or their business plan, that's an invaluable skill. And that it was always true. It was happening with mobile. It was happening with the internet. It's
yeah,
just so much more pronounced now. And I think the reason it's happening more pronounced now is because this first wave of AI applications were largely prompt boxes. It was
mhm,
largely input something and so it's kind of a black box in that sense. It's hard to figure out like, hey, what can this do? Unless you really sit down and watch a whole bunch of tutorials or something. They're starting certain models are doing a better job than others. Both OpenAI and Anthropic are doing a better job of saying like, hey, here's what you can do. Like Claude, especially like with their skills, and Claude
mm,
Code and Cowork are doing a great job of making it more obvious. It's still not for so many people. And if you can just help them not figure out with those models, but here's what our application's doing,
mm.
that it just, especially for this, like I said, these first like 3 years of the post ChatGPT AI boom, that has been such a really valuable space to occupy.
And getting people to understand, I really feel like that's the main thing that we do as a company, and I'm sure for you as well. And if I look out, you were saying you hope you stay up on 25%. Man, I would love to stay up on just the 25 of your 25%. You know, like I think there's, I think it's so like it's almost difficult going on to Twitter these days because every time I go on, it's like, you know, this is totally game changing. Everything is going to change, like whatever. And most of that is
Yeah.
hype and it's not real. But
Hmm.
even understanding like what's hype and what's real, it's impossible. And I think that while there's a lot of this kind of mix between boom and doom, the reality is probably not even in the middle. The reality is something that we haven't even considered yet. And there's going to be all these externalities, just like with social media, like you know that will influence everything from politics to culture to how our kids are growing up and grandkids and whatever.
Hmm.
And the thing that I often think about as it relates to people understanding is like this gap between I think about the change of like the change of technology and then the kind of understanding of humans. So incremental understanding versus exponential growth,
Hmm.
and trying to sit between that those two lines, right? So that's sort
Yeah.
of the opportunity gap.
Yeah.
And I think that's the area where as marketers we want to help our companies connect all the stuff that they're trying to do with people that have never heard about them, or as you know as a VC thinking about what all the conversations that they get to have on any given day, either by being pitched or by where investors are having challenges or seeing opportunities, and then being able to bring that to someone new that or someone that has an idea. um, and
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like the way that I honestly think about a lot of marketing is you can bucket into three areas. It's
mm,
either education, entertainment, or engagement.
mm,
Um, and there are times when you can hit all of those.
yeah,
But if you think about it, that especially from a content perspective, it kind of helps you it just like helps you reorient like your approach to something, and also it just kind of like can open up some of the possibilities for education. Like if like, hey, we're announcing a new feature,
mm,
a new fund. it's a company that's just
Yep.
raised around, you have a very clear thing of like what you're communicating. You're trying to educate the people. Here's the solution. Here's what it can do. Here's why here's why you might need it.
Yep.
And then at the same time too, I think so many companies have discounted for a long time that entertaining part of it. And entertaining doesn't mean like, I'm going to make you laugh, I'm going to do a TikTok dance. It means also, hey, you can do that and somehow tie it into your space, by all means do it. And
Yeah.
companies do it. It just means like, hey, i'm going to um I'm going to play in the space and the context around my business.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be how technology is accelerating. It could be something in the news. It could be just like, oh, hey, here's this way that people work. Why have we always worked this way? And
Mm-hmm.
kind of like questioning that in a more fun way versus the engagement side, which is really kind of coming to people where they are, whether it is on a platform that already exists, whether it is
Yeah.
making it so, hey, people can ask questions of people in a conversation like this,
Mm-hmm.
having an event, et cetera, just kind of like helping people bring them instead of just like, hey, watch me do this thing. Here's how you can do it. And let's nudge you into it, maybe having a contest or something like that. So I think for a long time, people were really focused on the education and engagement side, and the entertainment was kind of like the last pillar. And I really, I think what's happening more is that's coming to the rise more, and it's not you just might not notice it as much, but when you see a video that's just like, hey, it's a little bit more human, or when you see a founder write something that's a little bit more punchier than normal,
Mm-hmm.
or just like, hey, we're doing this because we believe this is the right thing to do. That's more manifesto-y, like that's coming from a place of conviction, and that is kind of entertainment is like the wrong word for it, but it's just like
Yeah.
it's coming from a more motivated space than just pure why. Like for
Mm-hmm.
example, a company I think that does this really well is Linear.
Mm-hmm.
Linear, they build this platform for building software,
Yeah.
and the founder Kari like will routinely put out things that are effectively manifestos, and it's everything about design to, and he'll do things that are around the news and stuff too. And he will do things around, there'll be things around features that he'll support, but not everything he puts around it doesn't always tie back to linear. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it's more just about like how design is changing. Obviously a few weeks
Mm-hmm.
ago, Claude Design launched and stuff too. And there were
Yep.
some people saying, hey, Figma's over, Craft is over. And Linear has positioned themselves as the Craft company, and stuff. And he had a really thoughtful like take on that. And I've seen them do it in other ways. And there are other founders who are doing this job, but that's my point. That's when I say entertainment, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even just willing to engage in a broader discussion.
So the three that you had listed were education, like basically just fundamental, like help people understand something. Entertain, which
Mhm.
is there's some level of um, something that's fun, or maybe just a pattern break. Maybe that's the way to
I
look at that.
wouldn't even go that. I would just say like there's just something that uh is like purposely designed to grab your attention.
Okay.
Almost
Okay.
almost in a way. So pattern break does work, but that makes it feel like more mechanical than it is. It just
Yeah.
really is like, and again, it's just more more purposeful,
Sure.
more
Well,
yeah,
it's
more
something to
purposeful.
maybe it's to talk about, and I don't know. I'd love so. I've followed Alex Bogusky for a long time when he was in the ad space, and he would often talk about hoopla,
Hmm.
and this
Hmm.
idea that Barnum and Bailey, like whenever they came to town, like you would just know that they were in town, and I think that's maybe in this
Yeah.
notion of entertainment that you're getting at, which it helps to connect. And I think this third thing that you talk about is engagement, which really does relate to more of a practical connection, like some sort of event. You're there, it's participatory. um and so if I was to break this down, it's like the first part of this is just like general learn the basics, have some way in which on the entertain side, like those basics break through the noise, and then to engage, like how you connect and have maybe more of that back and forth.
But there are ways people are tying it all together too now, which I
Yeah.
think is happens a lot with this like very, more personal video approach. Like I don't know if you've like what your YouTube ads are like, but I get a lot of, so I'm a heavy Claude user. I still get a bunch of Claude ads. And the ones I get most routinely are people, and it's either like it feels like someone is just like talking to a webcam, holding up their phone and just like, saying like, hey, here's how I use Claude.
Yeah.
And it's educational in the sense they're showing me what they do, what their workflow is. It's entertaining in the fact of like, this is presented to me not of like a Loom video. It's more someone like, hey, let me like the way, the way I get up in the morning. It's just
Yeah.
presented more in that style of video.
Hmm.
And it's engaging in the sense because it's not necessarily someone from Claude doing it. It's maybe like, I see it often like with a creator or somebody who's like already has a bit of a following too.
Hmm.
And I think that's a tactic that a lot of both uh, VCs and companies maybe don't employ enough is like finding people who already have an audience or who already have the storytelling capacity and
Yeah.
partnering with them. It's something that I did at Webflow when we did this Generation No Code web series. We worked with Matthew Encina, who
Yeah.
was formerly at The Future and then had his own YouTube following, and he's continued to do his own videos and products as well too. And he was, he had never done a documentary before, but he had the capacity to do it from a just storytelling perspective. And so we worked with him on, picking the subjects and, just kind of like molding the shape of it. And he was a fantastic partner on that. So I think there's a lot of ways you can do that. And you do see companies taking a more direct path to that now, like not just doing it at a one campaign off. Like you'll see, um, you see wholesale companies acquiring media entities, whether it
Yep.
is OpenAI acquiring TBPN, whether it is, um, uh, you know, uh, Mario from The Generalist just joined, I believe it's Hummingbird Ventures. Eric Turnberg joined A16Z, and he launched MTS, which is the 24/7 tech channel. I don't know if we really need a 24/7 channel, but if they get weird with it and late nights and
Yeah.
stuff and have fun with it, that could be really fun. So this is not too dissimilar from like every company having a publication and stuff too. The difference is now is like, instead of a company trying to do it from like 0 to 1 internally, it's like they are finding people who have the capacity, who've shown that they can do this, and they're empowering them to it. There are still people who are going to take this, and Robinhood did it with Robinhood Snacks. Like that was an existing newsletter they acquired, I believe, and then
Yeah.
folded into Robinhood Snacks, which is now its whole own um, entity. And I think this is just going to happen like more and more and more and more for the companies that uh, want to stand out, essentially.
Well, and the thing that I keep thinking about is like, how do we have a high automation lane? Which is obviously it's like all these things that we're building out Claude skills, all that type of thing, and then like how do we have a high trust, high human lane?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think you're talking about here, which is
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, great storytelling, but also great story listening, which I think
Mm-hmm.
often gets overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then how to have some of these fundamentals here, which I hadn't thought about in terms of breaking them down into these three core buckets, but that makes a lot of sense. And
Mm-hmm.
just in the last couple minutes here, because uh, I was like, I don't know, like we're gonna have enough to talk about in an hour. Like you and I hadn't talked in years and whatever. Obviously, we're kind of rounding out on time here, but just specifically on VC, like what do you think is the easiest place for them to start as it relates to those three types of content? Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
most people they'll put out a press release of like, oh, we just funded so and so, but that doesn't really, I mean, so what, right? I mean,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what do you think is a good bar for like how to start with content, and what's that crawl, walk, run like look like?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of between that entertainment and engage aspect. And again, I use entertainment pretty broadly here.
Yeah.
Where I would say it's like, hey, do you have a viewpoint of the future? Put it out there. Put it out there on the partners, LinkedIn, on their X, have them write an X essay, put that out there. Um, yes, podcasts can be helpful, but you need to have
Yeah.
a viewpoint. Do we need another VC talking to founder podcast? No. But if you have a perspective on it, or if you have something that you're going to talk about that isn't normally talked about or uncover something, then people will start to seek you out. Like the reason people seek out Lenny is, yes, he's built a massive platform, but it gives them a chance to just like fully dive into the nuances of their product and how it was built. And
Yeah.
so it's not just for product managers. That's how it started, but it's like, it's now become people who have a fascination with just like products and how they're built. And it turns out that circle is much wider. So where I would start, it's like I think writing is a clarifying medium. So I think having things where you can write down, even if you're, we have a lot of dictation software these days, Whisper
Yeah.
Flow, Monologue, etc. You can dictate your ideas and turn them into stuff. But then I really do think video is a really great place, and you don't need to have necessarily outstanding video. But the nice thing about having video is if you can capture kind of like one, you can make a lot of videos at once. You don't need to just make like one video at once. You can actually make two or three videos at once when you're working with people. And then you can also turn that video um into a text interview. You
Mm.
can create shorts from it. There can be an audio version of there. So that makes sense as a medium. I think you just get the most bang for your buck in terms of video when you're ready to step up. But I always recommend people, and part of my onboarding when I work with clients is just like, hey, let's write out a few of these narratives that we care about. There's a method that we get there for that, and let's also write like the tone of how we want to come across, and that. So that's kind of where I would start. Like, you do need some of those foundations in part, but once you have those, you can really get going and make, whatever, whether it is a post, whether it is a, hey, we're going to make a burn rate calculator that we're going to build on Replit and put out there, and we're gonna talk to Edgar Allan about designing it like better and putting that out there. So all that is storytelling, all that is marketing, and you still need to have this kind of like the why behind you're doing it, and you need to be able to talk about it effectively. And sometimes, yeah, it's just a resource. Like I know you guys did the Scale VP site, and I think Scale has done a great job of like, there's resources in there that are very tactical, and those charts are interactive, which is great and super helpful, and they're just out there, they're just open, and I think it creates
Yeah.
this founder goodwill of like, oh yeah, the Scale is a place that just has like a lot of stuff for me for those like kind of like advanced questions I have. And people go to First Round for a lot of those first, like, hey, how do I hire my first marketer
Yep.
kind of questions and stuff like that. So you kind of need to find that niche, and it really depends on how the partnership is constructed, who is there, what experience they have, and what they care about, and also their willingness to go on record with stuff.
Yep.
So you kind of need to, if you can suss all that out, and then you can find what those narratives are and the best format for it. um, yeah, there's always a lot of writing involved, even if what you see is mostly video or website or something. There's always a lot of writing.
And I think that's a good thing, and I think
Yeah.
writing, it helps to, as you said, clarify and almost create a direction of what should be happening or how it should feel. And um, I just wanted to kind of like round out here. And so for people that want to be able to catch up, hear more about you, you have a podcast called Brandzilla.
I
And
do. Yes, we've been a little bit behind because I've been traveling this last month or so, but we have a new episode probably dropping next week. And yeah, that's a podcast where we cover different brand campaigns. There's a theme to them. Actually, the next one's going to be about fundraising videos, which is very apt for this conversation. We've done one on robots, and then one on celebrities and AI, because that was happening a bunch around the end of the year last year. And yeah, so we'll be doing more of those, as well as some other stuff going on. And I have some other things I'm working on with some folks, some of which involve AI, some of which don't, that I'll be sharing. But yeah, you can see them all on LinkedIn or X. And yeah, it'll be fun to share those.
awesome. Well, good to be able to just hang out with you for a little bit. And I've got tons of great notes here. Absolutely be converting these to some articles and clips and get you some stuff to share. And but yeah, awesome to talk with you today.
Awesome, Mason. Thank you so much for having me.
Cool. Awesome.
Take care.
Bye.